is Rachel McLeod, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And I'm going to talk with you today about three reasons why your parents were emotionally unavailable and why you may be too. And I'm talking about this today because, this has been one of the issues that my clients have been talking about a lot this week, and one of the things I really help people heal from, because it's something that leaves such a huge hole in us and in our hearts, and affects the way we live our lives and communicate and connect with the people around us. And so and it's one of those questions that people can become very obsessed with trying to figure out, like, why weren't my parents emotionally available? Why didn't they see me? Why didn't they take time to help me? Why didn't they just ask me how I was doing? How could they have not known I was struggling? And this can really create a circle of unanswered questions and a lot of confusion. And um, and when we're in that place, we're disconnected from our ability to heal and to resolve these issues, and to just to break free of that. And it's something that we absolutely can heal. The good news is that we actually don't even need our parents to change to heal that, but you need to understand what you're dealing with, and really start to recognize it in yourself. And if you're recognizing this in yourself, you know that you're showing up the same way for your children. And that's what happens, is that we pass this stuff on to our kids, not because we don't love our children, not because we haven't rehearsed 1,000 times how we're going to become emotionally available to our kids and how we plan to be, and yet how we are stuck in that same cycle that our parents parented us with. And so when you understand these three things, you can really harness the power of your brain to heal and resolve these things, so that you can really stop that cycle of being emotionally unavailable for your children and future generations. So this is powerful work that you're doing, and it can be really deep. This is really, really deep work. This is foundational work, and that's why I love this, because I love instant gratification. And when we heal these wounds, it's like instant transformation starts to happen, and I love that. So let's talk about what this is, okay? So the first reason your parents were emotionally unavailable is because and I'm going to explain first. I'm going to go nerd on you, because I'm going to talk with you about how the brain works, and I want you to understand the brain workings of this, so that you can see that one, for yourself, it's not your fault that you may be emotionally unavailable, and it may not be your parents' fault that they were emotionally unavailable, but it was definitely their responsibility to heal this and to break this pattern, and it's your responsibility to break this pattern. So, but the first thing is, I want you to understand, like I said, how the brain works. So when you have trauma, anxiety, depression, you have these things that are going on in your brain, and that your brain is having this response to things that happen, because it's remembering. I just went off track. I'm going to go back on track here a second. Okay, you're having something happens and it triggers anxiety and depression, right? And what happens usually is that this is a trauma that took place, and it may be a big trauma, or it may just be an unmet need kind of trauma. But your brain keeps, we're looking at it, and it causes a lot of distress, and your survival center feels like that's not safe, because it's either painful or it's so confusing that we'll go insane trying to figure this out. And so it just takes this little event that happened that you just really can't figure it out, and it puts it over in quarantine, and it puts it over in, so that it's not connected to all the brain stuff. It's actually hasn't gone through the healing pathways yet, so it's kind of pre-staged. But the survival center it has no desire to get this healed. It just needs to protect you from it. So this event happened, we're just going to close that off over there, nobody touches it. But what happens is that the front part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, in there is your inner healer, and in there is a part of you that is very determined to heal all of your problems. And this is good news, because this one is standing by, and it's ready to do the work at any time. But this part of your brain will cause lots of problems. This is the part of the brain that's activating lots of panic attacks, lots activating the depression response that your survival center will go into. Because what it does is it is like, well, I got to get in there and I got to go into quarantine and I got to heal this stuff and I got to fix it. And so every time you relax, every time you just tune out and you let yourself float, this part of the brain activates and it says, okay, it's my turn. She's relaxing, she's watching some TV, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to do some work. And so it goes into quarantine and starts grabbing up on stuff and opening boxes so it can work on things. And so because it needs to be able to look at the stuff to be able to heal it, and so, or pay attention to it, really. And when it does that, it's activating the memories. It's activating the pain of this stuff that's not digested, it's not processed yet, so it's still painful, it's still confusing, it still has this big emotional charge to it that has a strong pull and pulls us right there. If you've had anxiety, depression, or PTSD for any amount of time, you have learned to reduce this by staying busy, staying high, eating food, all the things, just to keep this part of the brain from doing that. We learn that if we can just stop the brain from going in there, stop that thinking center and that inner healer from getting in there, then there won't be a problem. But the problem is that that part of the brain doesn't stop. And you have to work hard night and day and day and night to not be thinking about that thing that happened and those things that happened and why didn't they love me, and I wonder if I am lovable, and I wonder if I'm safe, and I wonder if this is going on. And your children can be right in front of you, and this is going on and your brain just is automatically going there, and it's really being pulled to these really big issues. And what we have taught ourselves and what we do in this country is we just keep ignoring it. Well, that means that this guy is going to keep going there, and it's going to keep going there and keep going there, and you have to work harder and harder and harder to get it to stop. And so, and that's a job. You got to stay 3 steps ahead of that part of your brain. And that means you're staying busy. That means you're not taking rest time. That means that you're not laying down with the kids properly, because if you lay down too long, that stuff could activate. Or maybe there's some conversations that you won't have, or some things that the kids are talking about that reminds you of that thing that you had going on. And now you're like, you can't be with the kids because now this whole thing's activated. And now your brain and your body are going off. You have tightness in your chest. Your stomach is in knots. And then you're noticing that you're not that available to the kids. And I want you to know that this is what happens with people. So they are actually preoccupied with traumatic events in the past or hurtful events in the past. They're preoccupied with emotional wounds. And this is not something that is a choice. This is a function of the brain. This is how the brain works. And then, you know, we shame ourselves because we're using strategies to interrupt the brain from doing that, and we're using strategies to get the brain to quiet down. And really, we don't understand that if we just will take some time and resolve these issues and get them through the healing pathways, and let that part of your brain, the healer, you let it get all over this stuff and actually resolve it, which it can, and quickly, then it doesn't have to keep going over there. It doesn't have to, it's not like obsessed with what's going on in quarantine. I need to get over there. I need to do my job. I need to go heal that stuff. Why won't I get over there? What's going on? You know, and so it's continue cycling over and over and over with that. When you go into quarantine, and this is what I help people do, because this can be scary to do on your own. But when we go over to quarantine and you deal with that emotional baggage, that unresolved emotional baggage, you can get that stuff even almost painlessly. It's not painless, but it's seriously reduced pain. Because if you have too much pain going on, your survival center will interrupt the process and you can't heal. And that survival center interrupting the process is why people don't heal. And nobody likes to be in pain. That's why we avoid pain. And if we think that we're going to go into emotions that are going to stab us up emotionally, nobody's trying to do that willingly. And so, but there are ways to do that in ways that are wonderful and powerful and good and tolerable, right? And that's not painless, but that's tolerable. And even some of the most traumatic content can go like this. So I'm wanting you to hear that if you don't deal with that emotional baggage that you're carrying around, if you keep stuffing it down and you keep avoiding it and you keep running from it, your brain can't do the healing work that it wants to do, and you will have to spend the rest of your life running from it. And what that means is that will cost you being emotionally available to your kids, because you will be emotionally preoccupied. You will be mentally preoccupied, and that will block you from showing up and being able to be present with your kids. And that is why your parents were not emotionally available to you. That is the fundamental reason why. And that's why they missed all those opportunities to help you out or to provide support or guidance or just to take care of themselves so you didn't have to worry about them, so you didn't have to take care of them. Right. And that's what's going on. And, I love working with that generation. But there wasn't a lot of great healing modalities during that time, and a lot of them really tried to resolve their emotional baggage, but we just weren't there yet. And so they were stuck with interventions with talk therapy, which talk therapy, I've told you, is wonderful for support, but it's not great for creating direct change with how the brain is responding to and healing emotional wounds like that. It's great for support, it's great for feeling validated, but it doesn't deactivate panic, anxiety, depression, or PTSD triggers as directly and quickly as what we really want to make that happen and what we can do now. And so, so many of them have tried and did try, but they couldn't stop being preoccupied. And what resulted from that is an emptiness within you, because there's so much that they should have, could have, would have been able to do if they were emotionally well that they just weren't able to do. And now you're parenting and you want to give your kids this wonderful upbringing, but there's just, it's just, you just didn't get it in your bag. And guess what? You can get that. You can get that stuff in your bag. You can get that emotional wellness. You can get the emotional healing that you need so that you are present. Because I'll tell you what, I don't run into a lot of people um, that in their conscious brain are wonderful, right? It's in that subconscious brain where they're wounded, and that's, the brain is very focused on working that out. And so if you can shift from being in that shift from that preoccupation from the wounds, then you can use that part of your brain as much as you want, which is good, because that's the part of the brain, that's where all your morals are, your values. That's where you can make a plan and stick to the plan. That's where you can choose, right? You're not under compulsion all the time. And so that's really important for you to understand, is that some of that, this is just brain stuff. And so, a lot of us, and I want you to hear that, we never stop wanting our parents. Even if we have cut them off and we're not talking to them anymore, the moment our parents heal and start really being able to connect, it's like, man, we're looking for that day. And I want you to know your kids are doing the same thing. They see you, they want you, they know there's wounds. And I want you to know, let's get that. Let's get those wounds healed up so you can get emotionally present. But I want you to know the second thing that's going on with why your parents were emotionally unavailable is that what happens with trauma and anxiety. And I want you to know, I'm going to just start using the word trauma at this point, because I find that that trauma is at the root of anxiety and depression. That's always what we're looking for. There are some other aspects that we can go after when we're talking about anxiety, but that is the root of it. Once you resolve the trauma, the anxiety and the depression just doesn't have the reason to be there like it did. And so I don't know if people think of anxiety and depression as trauma, but it is, like, that's really what's going on there. And I'll talk about that in a whole nother video, but so just stay with me. I'm just to shorten it, we're going to talk about trauma, which is the foundation of those two. Because anxiety is the stress response that's activated when your brain thinks that you're in danger, and it's the flight. You're going to run, and you're going to fight, and you're going to be irritable, and you're going to have angry outbursts, and you're going to fight, fight, fight. But there is something that your brain has decided is dangerous, is a threat to you. That's why. And what is that? Usually you've experienced something painful or something traumatic, and the brain is like, that's not happening again. I'm going to make sure we don't feel that pain again. And depression happens because your brain thinks that something is dangerous. And so it just says, we're going to put you to sleep. We're going to bring this down a little bit. We're going to protect you by suppressing everything. And so we're going to suppress your happiness. We're going to suppress this. And guess what? You're going to just feel really heavy, because we just want you to curl into a ball and just wait for this thing to be over. Because we got you. This is a great strategy. It's going to work out. You're going to stay alive, and it's going to be wonderful. The survival center is not super, it's not a thinking center. It's not rational. It's just, will you live or will you not live? And it's really pretty immediate. Um, and that's usually because the brain has determined something's dangerous. And that again has happened usually because there's been a traumatic event or a very painful emotional event, and the brain doesn't want that to happen again. So funneling down to trauma, right? Okay, what happens when we have trauma is that, and it's unresolved, it's like you have your parents here and you're here. And, but in between you is all of their trauma. I'm going to make this you. And okay, so in between you is the words their mom said, the fact that they don't feel safe, the fact they feel that no one will love them, the fact that they feel that they've been abused in this way, the fact that they've been neglected in this way, the fact that they see that you need something but they can't provide it right there. And so as you guys are looking at each other and you're having this conversation, they are looking through all of these things to see you, and it's creating a very distorted picture of you and the situation. So they're responding to the past, they're responding to the thoughts, they're responding to the beliefs they have, they're responding to this, and they're responding to their how they don't know how to handle this right now, and they're seeing that they don't meet your need and that you're unhappy and they don't know how to fix it, and all their alarms are going off too. And you're like, I'm just saying that this hurt me when you did that. Oh, you just are saying I'm such a bad parent. You're just saying all this stuff, or fine, I never do anything right. And they can never hear the message that you're trying to send them. And the reason they can't hear it is because all of their trauma and all the limiting beliefs and all the damaging stuff that they've picked up in their emotional baggage is standing in between you. And so they can't see you even clearly because of all that stuff. Their interpretation is just distorted by all the trauma. And that is what happens. And if you are experiencing symptoms of anxiety, depression, or trauma, or maybe you don't know that you're experiencing those, but you've got problems like emotional eating and addiction, and you're codependent. If you've got those issues going on, that's the same root. It's usually trauma, which is emotional wounding. And so what happens is, so that's what's going on as you're parenting your kids. You're noticing you're saying the same things your mom said, because all that stuff's in here, like what my job as a mom, all these things, what I learned, what I picked up, all the subconscious brain trash that was shoved in my brain from the ages of 0 to 7 when I had no filter. And here's my kid who I love and I'm trying to, but oh my gosh, there's all this noise. I can't hear through it to hear my kid accurately and respond just to my kid, just being present with my kid. And then we do some terrible thing where we say the same thing our mom said. And then later we go like, gosh, why did I say that thing? And then we have to go back. We have to apologize. If you're doing, I mean, at the very least, if you're stuck in this trap and you just apologize, you are doing a world of good for your kid. If you don't apologize for this, when you come to your awareness that you didn't, you are missing a great opportunity to connect, because your kid does not know why you are not available. It doesn't know that your kid doesn't know why you just responded like that when they just were trying to tell you this other little thing. And they're like, Mom, I'm trying to talk to you, or Dad, I'm just trying to get some help. And pretty soon they learn that you can't hear them. Just like your mom, you learned about your mom and your dad, they can't hear you, they can't see you. And every time you try to get in their face, they're seeing all these other things. They're seeing their anxiety, they're seeing their depression, they're seeing their shame, they're seeing their self-hatred, they're seeing the beliefs that other people, the pressures of their socialization, they're seeing all of that, and they can't see you. And you, after a while, you learn just not to go to them anymore. You learn that they're not going to ever see you, right? And because when you tried, it was so distorted. And guess what? If mom or dad does not heal that, that will be how it goes forever, because time does not heal this wound. It just doesn't. That's not one of the healing ingredients. And time is not going to heal this wound for you either. There are very specific things that heal this wound. And yes, those things can happen spontaneously. They can happen miraculously. They can happen intentionally. They can happen, but they've got to happen. And so as you're looking for this stuff, that's what has to go down. You have to heal these things, and they have to heal in time. Again, it's not one of the ingredients. The third reason why your parents were emotionally unavailable is that, I think I may have wanted to say something else about that, but it'll come back if it comes back. So the third reason is that your parents were emotionally unavailable is that there's a principle that I made this up just now, so don't go looking for this principle. It's Rachel's world. But the principle is that hurt people. That's what they do. And and if your parents have hurt going on, if they were hurt emotionally and they did not resolve that, they are going to hurt you. Um, hurt When people are hurt, they're emotionally wounded. Their growth, their emotional intelligence, and their emotional growth is stunted so powerfully. It's really a powerful thing. There's so much development that does not take place, and that's hard to hear. But let me tell you what, I've been there, done that. And as soon as you set the intention to grow, you can absolutely grow through that. And but this is why we sometimes feel like we're acting childish, or we can see that somebody else is acting like a teenager even though they're 40. And there's total brain reasons for that, and I'll get into that in another video because it's really cool. But the thing that you need to know is that hurt people. And so if you're hurt, if you have emotional wounds, you are going to hurt people with that, because it's your bag, right? And you reach in your bag and you pull whatever's in your bag out. And if hurt is in your bag, well, you just give somebody a little bit of that and just sprinkle a little bit over there. And and you're hurting people. And you might be trying really hard not to hurt people, so you're withdrawing away from them, and then guess what? That hurts people. You're just pulling out of this bag, and it's really frustrating because it seems like you can't do anything without hurting people. And it seems like everywhere you go, you're just hurting people. And then you just realize, I'm just not very safe. And then you start, guess what? You unconsciously, you start pushing your kids away because you don't want your kids to get any of this on them. You want them to not know. So you start withholding yourself from them, and that hurts them because they know it. They know that you're holding stuff back, and they know exactly what it is. And you're just passing out hurt everywhere because you're hurt. And we can call this anxiety, depression, trauma. We can call this emotional eating. We can call this addiction. We can call this codependence. We can call this whatever we want, but it's really emotional pain. It's really all the ways we have, and our body has to cover up emotional pain. And if you are in pain, you are creating pain. And so the best thing you can do for the whole world, starting with yourself and your family, is to get yourself out of pain. And I'm not talking about medicating it. I'm not talking about medicating the pain. I'm not against medication. That's a whole nother talk. In the right time and the right place, I think medication is a fantastic option. But it's part of the healing option. It's not medicate and just chill. And there's lots of reasons for your health why that's not a good thing. And again, another video. But if you want to get out of it, you've got to make the pain stop. And your brain wants to help you make the pain stop. The actual thing that's causing all the symptoms of anxiety, depression, and PTSD is actually because your brain's trying to heal itself and it just is blocked. That's really what it is. And if it wasn't trying to heal itself, you wouldn't even be that's just not how it works. Like, all brains are trying to heal themselves. So that's just, I don't know what would happen, because that's just the function of the brain, is to do that. So but the thing with hurt people is that one of the products of that is that hurt blocks our connection with one another. And just the fact that we are disconnected hurts. Like, we were made to be connected. We were made to be passing back and forth love and gratitude. I mean, if we want to simplify everything, really those two things, that's really what we were meant to be passing back and forth, and joy, I guess, or maybe we just are joy centers. It's part of what we're supposed to be doing. But that's really what we're supposed to be passing back and forth. And when you are withdrawn in depression, you can't. And when you are in survival mode and you're in flashbacks, or you're in dissociation, or you're in just anxiety, it's hard to connect, because the part of your brain that connects is not available. It's not because there's anything wrong with you or bad. It's just, this is how brains work. And if you want your brain to work well, you've got to do the work to make your brain work well. And that work is beautiful. It is awesome. It's life changing, and it's generation changing. And it's great. I mean, it's like, this is it. So I want you to understand that. And I want you to understand that I want you to understand this. I'm not trying to, you have to process the hurt you feel as a result of having an emotionally unavailable parent. Like that has to happen. And that's one of the things I help people do. And because I help people do that, I know it happens. Like you can heal from that. And you can also stop all this stuff from happening. And you can start to be emotionally available to your children, but also just to yourself. I mean, you deserve that. And if you don't have that just for you, just to be present with yourself, to be emotionally available to yourself and to your dreams and your goals and your health and your wellness. If you don't have that, it's like the buck stops right there. This is such an important thing for you to prioritize and you to grab for yourself, because once you get it and you sprinkle it all on there and you're healing and you're becoming more and more emotionally available, you're healing more and more. And then you get to pass that right down to your children, and they get to have the honor of having a mom who recovered from this and who knows how to overcome, or a dad for that matter. And they watch this parent become a superpower, because if you've been struggling under the weight of emotional wounds and anxiety, depression, and PTSD, you are strong. You are seriously emotionally buff. And as soon as you get well, you are like floating around. So do it. Do it for your kids. Let them watch you unveil your superpowers and get that. So that's what I've got. If you have any questions, you can post that. I'm trying to remember to say that at the beginning so that you can actually post and ask the questions. But if I don't get to them tonight, you can still post your questions here. I will get to those. And so I want you to reflect on all of that. And if this is something you're like, hey, Rachel, oh my gosh, you're speaking my language. This is like, I've been waiting to do this kind of work. I'm happy to spend an hour with you and help you get clear on what's not working, where you want to go, and how to get a plan to get from what's not working to get where you want to go. Because really that's what it's all about. So I will spend an hour with you to help you get clear on those three things. And you can get on my calendar by booking a call with me by going to rachelmcleod.com/call. And I will call you at the time that you choose, and we'll dig in there and get you a plan to get you out of this. So that's it for me. And good night, everyone. And I hope that this really um, gives you vision that, number one, this is not your fault. Your anxiety, depression, trauma, your emotional eating, your codependence, your addiction issues, your confidence issues, it's not your fault. It is your responsibility, and it's your right. You have a right to heal. So I will talk to you all later. Thanks for joining me. Bye.